Welcome back to Jcrtical episode 2. And the name might change, but I'm Jcrypto and I'm gonna give the mic over to my co-host here.
Hey, what's up? Subcritical here. Yeah, we're trying out the Reach podcasting room still. Kind of giving it a shot on our own this time. Last time CJ helped us out. So there will be technical difficulties, but as long as you guys are interested in the topics we're talking about and not my camera angles, I think you'll be all right.
So a quick rundown today. We're gonna be talking about Virtua. We're gonna be talking about some Cardano feature on Cardano that allows you to easily send multiple assets in one transaction. We're going to be talking about a bunch of other stuff. There's a concept, a real estate concept that I love just talking about because it's actually a really great concept, especially for younger people to even be aware of, because most people aren't, which is lease to owns, and how Empower is actually enabling lease to owns in Africa. We'll touch on that. And then we have a couple other broader things like news kind of items that are happening on Cardano. Is that pretty fair, Subcritical? Is there anything that I might have missed there?
No, I think you kind of covered all the things we'll be talking about today. And which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, man. Well, we are in the metaverse, so maybe we should start with some metaverse stuff. I had that interview I did with Jawad, the CEO of Virtua. Before I kind of get into my thoughts on Virtua, what's your current, because obviously you are wicked cool, man, by the way. Subcritical is like, he's kind of specializing, I would say, in DeFi slash just like very in the know on hot topics of Cardano, good and bad, right? But you do play around a little bit with buying up metaverse plots, or you at least look at the space. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so I looked into some virtual worlds and some metaverses and stuff like that. I'm invested in a few different projects, but I don't follow it definitely as much as you do.
Right. I mean, I'm kind of they call me like the metaverse guy in Cardano, which is not really something that I guess I'm leaning into it because you kind of need to lean into things as like you discover what content people enjoy from you, I feel like, as a content creator. But at the same time, I do like to only talk about the things that I'm truly interested in. And there's a lot of metaverses on Cardano that I don't know anything about. So I'm looking at, I have like 5 or 6 maybe that I know a good amount about. And then there's like 4 that I'm really interested in. I feel like the conversation around Virtua, at least the way I saw it, was we didn't really know much about them. And they did this thing with Cardano Summit NFTs. Joshua from IOHK, Joshua Miller, started to tweet about it. And all of a sudden, we felt the full force of their company on Cardano Twitter spaces, on Cardano YouTube channels, just everywhere. They just really made a major marketing push. And I think people were a little bit taken back because if they were saying Pavia was the front running metaverse, or Cornucopias was, or Cardania would be the most successful, or something else, it's like all of a sudden this company with 300 people comes into Cardano and just starts marketing and showing off some really cool 3D assets and stuff. And I think, you know, the tribalism theory is true even in Cardano with projects, which I personally hate, because the truth is, guys, that a rising tide does lift all ships. So when something good happens, when a project comes in and they have the ability to market Cardano and to show off its native features, I think it's a great thing for all the metaverse projects on Cardano and all the NFT projects too, because that's where I believe IP will live. But there was a lot of people that were like, no, the prices are too high for the mint. I'm not going to even pay attention to it. They haven't built the trust yet. And, I just wanted to sit back and watch and just really understand their company, which I did. So that's my initial take, and I can talk about what I found out about the interview with Jawad, and people can go watch that. But what was your take when you started seeing virtual? Was it similar? Did you have a different take? Did you hear people saying different things? What was kind of like your feel?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what you're saying about the tribalism and stuff like that. And I'm always curious if it's just because people have invested so much money in other projects that they don't want to back another one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for any projects like coming and going. Like, will I invest my own money into them? I don't know. Like, I'll decide that at a later time. I'm fine with like things coming in. I know like maybe my projects might die or things like that. Like, and I'm fine with that. Maybe just because I'm not over invested, I don't have that same mentality. But yeah, what does Virtua bring that's different than other projects?
Yeah. So in the interview with Jawad, what I found out was a few things. Number one, they've had more time to think about the metaverse than probably most other metaverses in the space. Now, their advantage is that I think maybe the potential disadvantage was that some of the founders from other, like I know Cardania, he's been invested in Cardano since I think 2017 or something, right? And I know that the guys from Pavia have been long-term Cardano people too. So they understand how the tech works on Cardano. And I know that Cornucopia's similar story, obviously Rob, he's had proposals funded and Catalyst. He knows how Cardano works. And I mean, all the founders of those projects have interesting backstories that make me believe that they have a lot to offer. But I think the main difference is like Jawad and Virtua, they have a different like advantage where were like they were showing off their vision of the metaverse when Ready Player One first screened. So that's a very interesting thing because that was way back if you think about it. So like that's number one. The other thing that's interesting to me, you know what I mean though? Like they had more time to understand what the metaverse is. That's like a huge thing for me. I think that that will actually be a massive advantage for them. And Jawad had like, I mean, I forget if he was the CEO or just like built, but he was involved in a virtual reality company as well. So like before
Okay, so he
virtual,
already has some experience.
big time, big time. And it sounds like, he's run successful companies in the past. He's well connected with very high level people. And that shows, I believe in the beginning of the interview, he talks about Gary. And Gary is just like there's a few elements that they have. There's a few weapons that they have too, which kind of leads to the next point. But why don't we stick on that, let that breathe for a second. What do you think about that thesis of them having more time to think about the metaverse as an advantage?
Yeah, I think anybody who's had more time is definitely at an advantage. Because I know the thing with Pavia is people felt that it's probably like people who aren't experienced in any of this trying to figure it all out. And then when it comes to other games, we've seen some projects that have like I don't even know where they come from, and they're just like you don't know anything about the founders or anything like that. So yeah, I think that is a good advantage for them. But
He
like,
made the
what do they have
yeah.
out right now that makes you just you knew that they actually had this experience?
So let me because I don't want to forget this other point, and then we can jump to some other things that I'm seeing that are interesting.
Hmm.
But the first thing is um he made a very important argument, I think, which is that the 60 or 70% of degens that will use the metaverse and actually like play games and do stuff in it, they don't want to share their data. And I think that this is a really true point because even myself, like I've YouTubed how to not use my Facebook account for my Oculus, um, just because number one, like making a fake email and signing up and whatnot, I just don't want the emails from Oculus personally. Um, so on my personal email, And there's other things that I guess other people are worried about when it comes to sharing data, but this leaves a wide open market for Web3 metaverses. So he made that point, and I thought that that was true. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I know I don't really want like to hook up like a Facebook and all that. Like I made a separate like Facebook account for just like playing VR games with everybody. Because it is kind of strange, like this weird notion that everybody needs to know what we're doing all the time, like friends and family and random strangers. Like we
It's so
don't.
strange. Yeah, like I don't want to, yeah, I don't want people knowing I'm playing Beat Saber that, I went to high school with or something. I mean, I don't care, but at the same time, like I kind of don't want that, like, yeah, I don't want that shared. And there's been times where Facebook's just shared posts in the past when I've hooked up my Facebook account and I'm like, what is this? Like, what? I didn't post this on my Facebook. So it is kind of sketchy. Um, so I mean, that's important to me because when it comes to why invest in virtual land, right? Like, what is the thing? It's not for me to do a flip. So there needs to be some very strong arguments on why this is going to be big. And I like that as one of the foundational argument points on why they're investing so much money into this.
Yeah, I mean, right now it seems like most investors are looking for a flip, or they think they're like buying into something in the future that's going to have a huge return. Whereas I feel like with you and I, like we're looking for something new to try, and we want to see what's going to happen with it. So I think there's different viewpoints for the metaverse, and then there's obviously the side where people just hate this whole metaverse thing, and they just gonna die out, like they don't believe in it at all. I mean, there's a lot of different views.
Right. And like what I try to do though is I try to look at what's happening. And one of the things that they've recently done was they have a partnership with a major comedian, Kevin Hart. So I don't know if you've seen that, but essentially what Virtua is doing with Kevin Hart is imagine Kevin Hart doing an exclusive show that you can only watch in Virtua.
Right, I'm imagining it.
I mean, that will bring in traffic, right? Like that's like a traffic play, but it goes beyond traffic. That's Kevin Hart's IP. And I think that like the difference between Virtua and other companies for me is they've bought different IP that they can now use. So there's this thing, Nitro League, that I believe they have IP rights to do stuff with and collaborate with. And they build really cool like car racing games in the metaverse, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that Jawad mentions that Virtua has bid on IPs for 30 million and someone else has, bought it for 60, right? Like they're constantly trying to buy up assets that are IP that they can leverage in their metaverse, and it's recognizable IP that's worth like a lot of money. So being an anime fan, like I know the power of IP because the model with anime is it's like this $22 billion industry, I believe in like 2020. It's only going to grow and it's become incredibly pop culture relevant. I know Subcritical, you're a fan of anime. And like the thing is for me, it's like, dude, what happens is this somebody makes an anime and then a streaming platform like Crunchyroll will buy a license to show the anime. And what those licenses are worth are like 200 and like $50,000 for a year or something, and that's like for a smaller show. So IP is incredibly valuable to have because if not many people are buying IPs of different things, like they made a King Kong, so like they have IP for King Kong, they have an IP for making a Mech Godzilla, and they have all these like officially licensed assets from these different IPs. And like that's what VV is doing. Have you seen VV too?
Yeah, I've heard of VV. They do a lot of stuff with like I don't know, like IP, right?
Like Marvel?
Yeah, Marvel stuff I think I've seen, and maybe some DC stuff too.
Yeah. So like for me, that's the best route to go for metaverses and marketplaces. So that's a strong foundation, and they can do a lot with that IP and create a lot of value for people. They're airdropping some officially licensed King Kong or something, Godzilla. I forget what they are, what shows they're from or movies they're from, but these are like officially licensed helicopters, jets, like cars, assets from these different IPs. And they're just giving them out to people that minted their land on certain occasions. So that's one thing that's actually really cool to me.
Yeah, because that's definitely something we've seen, like using IP to kind of get people is like, whether it was like Rocket League with having like Batman cars in it and stuff like that, or Fortnite, anytime there's a new movie, they're kind of throwing those characters in there and stuff to build up hype and stuff. That's kind of what I picture too in the future with these like metaverses is like, companies are going to want to be part of like the marketing for it and things like that. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting to hear that they're working with so many people. I did see the Kevin Hart thing. I didn't really look into it too much. I'm always curious how much of like those fan bases will convert over and like try out these experiences or not. Especially when it comes to like a comedy show or something like that. Like, do people want to watch that in the metaverse or not? I did see like Paris Hilton did like something with like Roblox where she was like DJing their like Roblox metaverse and kids were like taking like Roblox selfies with her and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's a thing. Like, it's definitely like maybe we're just not used to it yet because some people are just like, no, I want to do the real thing. It's like, but how often do you do the real thing if you're gonna meet like Kevin Hart or something like that, you know? So I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing to think about, and it's interesting to see that a project is already doing so much with IP.
Where I see it going is all content will eventually be, in my opinion, somehow kind of managed through NFT technology. And if I'm right about that, and I don't know if you've seen Argus, what they're doing with JPEG Store, but Argus is already like able to detect if somebody, copies an NFT and makes like under another policy and tries to scam people. So eventually, I believe that's going to breed into Web 2, where you're going to have machine learning detect and flag if somebody's using content or IP, and immediately it will be taken down unless you own it. So for Kevin Hart to do a show, I mean, just imagine. Now, I'm not sure if they're going this way yet, but they could go this way with people like Kevin Hart. And I think that this is the other part of their vision that I'm attracted to, and it might not play out this way, but by the time it plays out this way, everyone will know. So I'm trying to just get behind like, okay, where are they going with this? So that way I can kind of predict and be set up. And the thing is, like, if you own the rights to, the show to use as content and nobody else does, I mean, Netflix buys those shows for how much money, And if Kevin Hart's able to make royalties on people selling that content, that's super interesting to me. So I think that by like, yeah, sure, it might not be like a huge audience translation yet for Kevin Hart for people to come into Virtua. It might be. I'm not really worried about that because I know that by being able to use Kevin Hart's content or Snoop Dogg's music or just being able to like post clips of it on my YouTube show in the metaverse, there's going to be a point where that access is only given to people that own that IP or own land or like you have to own. I feel like you're going to have to own something to have access to those things that happen in Virtua. And if that's true, then I could see massive businesses because I think one of the biggest sectors right now is digital property, like even before NFTs. And that was like website domains and like, software, like, SaaS companies, things of that nature, like owning these operational tech that can then be monetized through subscriptions or used as content. To me, that is like a massive industry. So if we're early to that and Virtua is a platform that enables that, I'm really bullish on that. And so far, they're kind of a front runner. Plus, they have 300 people in their company, 50 3D modelers. So it's looking good after I've done more research, is what I guess the main point is on Virtua. I actually really like it. So I did buy up a plot. They gave me a plot, and then they gave me a plot to give away. So I'm definitely going to try to accumulate when it makes sense, but not overextend myself. So full disclosure, I do own some Virtua stuff too.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into that one a little bit too. But yeah, it sounds like they got a lot of stuff going. Yeah, with virtual LAN, I don't know. Like I know people are still iffy about that. I know like Monad is one of the people that I hear like talking about a lot, where it's just like, why are we creating this virtual LAN and making like virtual scarcity and stuff like that when it shouldn't really translate to real life real estate? But I don't know. I think some people kind of like, owning specific land that's limited, even if it is virtual. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've actually interviewed Alex, and I have a different point of view than him, because what I see as like virtual scarcity isn't just arbitrarily manufactured virtual scarcity. It's a platform spends money on tooling and provides different ways to bring in traffic to a virtual environment. And if you own a plot of this platform, then they get the royalties of that plot whenever it sells. But they're also hosting the servers. They're paying money every month or year to basically hold this virtual environment and make it accessible and interoperable with other virtual environments to bring in traffic. So like for me, the virtual scarcity just means, well, if they have 100,000 plots available like Pavia, I mean, making 200,000 arbitrarily would mean double the costs for them. And I think that it's not sustainable after a certain point, because you have the law of diminishing returns. Plus, it's not attractive to holders if there's too much available, and it's like hard to host more and more space if you don't have people that are interested in building and bringing people to the platform. So if there's 100,000 plots in somewhere like Pavia, I mean, that is so scalable. Like, you don't need to increase the supply of plots, because as big money comes in and people do cooler and cooler stuff with the tools that Pavia provides, then I think that model can actually work. So I disagree with the fact that it's just, arbitrary scarcity from Monad's point of view. I do see his point of view leaning towards something like a subscription model, where you get, unlimited space as long as you pay per month, and you get tools if you pay per month. But to me, that's not an asset. So if there's no royalties for an NFT that you sell going back to the company, and the only way that the company is making money is through subscription fees, then the person that's building in that virtual environment doesn't hold an asset that they are like, it's a liability, because they're paying a monthly price for those tools and things.
Yeah, I
And
think those are
that's
some good points you bring up, man. Because a lot of the time, I think a lot of people are thinking of NFTs through just like an art perspective, and it's like you made art and you sold it, and now somebody owns it. And now for an artist, there's usually no upkeep on any kind of art you make, right? Like if you made a painting, you just sold it, it's gone. It's not like the guy calls you and it's like, hey, it's been a year, but I need some touch ups on this, so you have to come out and do it because I own it, or you know. As opposed to like you're saying with virtual land, where there are server costs, there's employees who are constantly updating these platforms and things like that, and without any kind of money coming in, whether that's going to be through royalties or selling some other kind of item, you really need something to sustain your business. So that is a good thought to think about. And then like you're saying too with Monad, if you're saying a subscription service, then yeah, do you really own the land? Because if you just stop paying, you give it up, right? Like, so it's just gone at that point. Yeah, I think there's a lot of intricacies to how this whole like metaverse and like virtual land is going to work out.
so like for me though, um, I think both can work. I just don't think that in a society like ours, where we really don't own much, like there's not much that people really own, like the everyday person. We need more assets than liabilities in tech, because I think it's healthier to go that direction. And you can always fractionalize something and be creative with that. And that creates different layers of accessibility for other people to own portions of an asset. So though I don't believe that every metaverse project is going to win or succeed, in fact, it's like, yeah, there's only going to be like a few, or maybe like a percentage, like a small percentage, like 5 or 10%, maybe even 1%. It still is like, if you can find those 1 to 10% that will work and you can own and operate an effective business, I think that that's healthy fiscally for the global economy to go that direction. And it's more of a kind of decentralized approach too, because when you own something, if you can kind of decide what you want to put on it and do on it, and you own the rights to it, it's for me, say it's it feels better, because if I'm the only one that owns this NFT of this land, then yeah, if they, you know, censor me or whatever, like I still own the NFT. Like if I just pay a subscription and I'm doing something, and I'm not saying that I'm one to get censored.
Yeah, I think
Pretty,
I know it's a hypothetical.
but like people that are worried about that tend to be the kind of people that we interact with, right, in Web3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that appeals to them is this aspect of ownership, opposed to paying for access to do something. And I think from a real estate background, you always want to own your assets. You don't want liabilities, because that's how wealth is generated. When you own it, you can take a mortgage out against it. You can, like we already see with virtual plots on Lending Pond, you can take a loan out against it, right? If you have a subscription to access, you can't take a loan out against that. So there's like limitations in wealth building too from that other model, which is why I want both. I'm not saying that we should only have the land, but we must have this asset model work somehow, because it's healthy, I think.
All right. Yeah, great. Let's move on to another subject, since we have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.
We can show
Yeah.
this TikTok you were talking about.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Yeah. So I'm doing a giveaway, and all you got to do is make a TikTok of my interview with Jawad, and then post it or comment it on the tweet that's pinned to my Twitter. And there's some directions in that, but I also talk about at the end of the interview. So I'll put the link to the interview at the description of this video too. But yeah, show the TikTok. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Let's see if it loads up. All right.
With my co-founder Gary Bracey, he was like a massive. You don't hear a lot about him, but he's like a massive video game veteran. He was the first guy who licensed movies to video games. That was Gary. And when we launched Virtua, because Gary's a BAFTA member, we launched at the BAFTA Film Institute in central London, and we got Ready Player One 2 weeks before the official release. And we had all the press there. We said, this is a 2-hour trailer for what Virtua is going to become.
You guys are with intellectual property and some Look of at the that Godzilla collaborations that you have.
And
then those are the cars. Those are the other
It's
things.
something that when we think of where this is going and
then
people
look at this
being
King
in these
Kong at the end
environments,
here, I think.
it's to me the biggest deal. Having IP that's relatable and also can play into the imagination of people and give.
With my co-founder Gary Bracey, he was
so
like
that was Windier, my co-host of Metaverse Monday, and he entered the giveaway, and he's got 5 likes so far. So obviously the higher the likes and views, the better, but it's not the only thing. Anyways, dude, we can move on though, and if the sound didn't come through, I'll definitely edit that in.
Yeah, hopefully it came through. I'm not sure if it did or not, but yeah, at least you have a segment to put it on. But yeah, that's really cool. Like they do have a lot of IP. It's pretty cool to see, Godzilla and like King Kong and all this other crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what's next, bro? What's the next topic?
Yeah, so let's see. I know one thing I wanted to talk about and just kind of hear your thoughts. When it comes to like Cardano Foundation, I found this interesting because I was looking at Twitter and like a job posting pulled up for Cardano Foundation. So I was just kind of curious what the company's like or anything like that. So I just went to Glassdoor. And the reviews weren't really great. Like actually, like the latest one said that it's disorganized. The pros was interesting
shoot.
industry with many passionate people, and the cons were highly disorganized with a lot of unclarity and poor pay for the industry. And then going down, like there were some other ones that were also just as bad that I saw that were just saying management wasn't great and things like that. I'm just curious, do you think that impacts Cardano at all, or should we really care too much about what the foundation is doing anymore, or employees there?
Yeah, so I kind of want to hear your thoughts first, if you don't mind, and then I'll go because I've talked a lot and I have a lot of thoughts, and I definitely I really respect your opinion on things too, but it won't change mine. I'm just saying I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, so I mean, my thoughts wise are I think a lot of us kind of suspect there's something going on there. We've seen a lot of people roll out of their roles, especially now that we're approaching like Vossel, where I thought like maybe these roles would be sticking around, especially with like a big chunk of this happening, and then like more stuff coming out later this year for Cardano. So I'm kind of surprised that people were leaving or moving around. But maybe it isn't a great place to work. And then on that way of thinking, should like Cardano Foundation and all them be in control of so much if the company isn't doing that well? Should it be given over more to the hands of the people, especially with those who have the keys right now can kind of change or do anything they want? Is that slowing down progress of Cardano? It might be. So I'm just kind of curious what you think also.
Well, I think we need to think about what's coming. I think we need to think about what's the role of Cardano Foundation. And then we need to think about how much power do they actually have? Because for me, what's coming is most important, which is Voltaire. And we're in Basho, which is, for people that don't know, the era of the roadmap. Okay. If you type in on Google Cardano roadmap, you'll see Gauguin, Shelley, Basho, Voltaire, and at the beginning, I think it was Byron. So with Basho, it's all about scalability and optimizing Plutus. So with scalability and optimizing Plutus, we're doing a ton of stuff, and a lot of stuff is getting done. And I'm going to be talking to more developers the tail end of this month to see if everything's on track for Basel. It sounds like it could get delayed. With Voltaire, Charles did a whiteboard video and he discussed how he was even a little bit, he even said like his hope for Cardano Foundation was this, or that, and it didn't really end up, working as well as it was supposed to. And he wants to move to a bicameral model where you have the ADA voters, and then you have kind of like these committees, if you will, that will present proposals to the ADA voters, both on governance and on parameter changes. So how I believe it works right now, to get back to how much power Cardano Foundation has, is there is 7 keys to do any parameter changes. And I believe IO has 3 of them. Emergo has 2, and then Cardano Foundation has 2. But Cardano Foundation since has actually delegated their 2 keys to IO. So the only power that can make any parameter changes right now is really IO, because if they already have 2 delegated, if I'm right on this fact, then they have the 5 keys necessary, because you need 5 to make any parameter changes to do anything. So Cardano to me is still very centralized from like the top down, which is fine, because that's what Voltaire aims to, change. With Cardano Foundation having bad reviews and it not working and poor pay, to me, I'm not really surprised by that. I mean, it doesn't seem like Cardano Foundation is doing anything, incredibly stellar. I don't know. I've seen some good stuff from them, but it's like every once in a while they'll put out some updates, and I do read a lot of their blogs. So I think that that's interesting, but I'm only looking at that from a marketing standpoint. So I'm not on the inside, man. What I do believe could happen is we may see people like yourself looking at the jobs in Cardano Foundation, and maybe I don't know, like for me, it's very important for people working in Cardano Foundation to have a blockchain and macro finance background. I don't know, like maybe what I think is also important is to have like this, mission driven approach to, helping the world out. But it's like, I feel like the blockchain background and the macro financial background is not as prevalent at the top as it could be. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but I really, and I'm not sure if I even have the facts right, but I've only talked to several people from Cardano Foundation. So maybe that would be a great guest if they see this to one day come in and give us the lowdown on what's going on with these bad reviews and how things are going internally. But it's hard for us looking at Twitter posts, looking at Glassdoor to really ever know.
Yeah, I mean, we can only go by these reviews that we see, and obviously, maybe these are people that were just upset that decided to go on there and talk about it. But I would like to hear from somebody from Cardano Foundation. And I mean, even just hearing like a more global, like what they're doing everywhere, because I know there's different programs and projects going on. It'd be interesting to kind of hear. But yeah, we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah, we can do one more here. Want to do, let's see here. Want to do which, or yeah, we can do the Lucid one, and then we can do the Lucid one too real quick, because that's a good one for Cardano education. And then maybe we'll have more time. Let's try to wrap up around 5, so we'll do a full hour, but or maybe like 4:40 or 4:55. But
all right, yeah, so I got this tweet pulled up. So on Cardano, you can send multiple assets in a single transaction. That means on Cardano, you can send 100 assets to different addresses in one single transaction. This would take 100 separate transactions on Ethereum or Solana and totally destroys any TPS argument. Need a new ruler.
So so Lucid, obviously, huge guy on Twitter. I've been following his tweets. He's like, I as a YouTuber, I love finding people like, who else is really good is you, Jane, Lucid, Monad. There's a few people that just point things out that I just really resonate with. I talked about this the first time was when I claimed all my assets from Cardania, because what they've done is you can claim like 50 different fungible tokens that represent in-game resources in one transaction. And I believe it's like I send like 5 ADA and then they send me back like 4.8 ADA. So they're sending me 50 different fungible tokens whenever I claim my resources for my Cardania plots. And they're sending me back 4.8 ADA, and I'm paying a fee of 0.2 ADA or something, like really small. And I've used this feature before where I've sent people multiple assets, or I've sent multiple assets in one transaction to another wallet. And I just didn't really recognize it. But thinking back to my days on Binance Smart Chain, this is not possible. Like it's you can't just send multiple different assets, like multiple different fungible tokens, and select the amount on these other blockchains. On Cardano, you can. It's incredibly efficient, cheap, and fast. So I just wanted to highlight this.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't really know from other chains watching, because like with drip drops, like one amazing thing there is, right, you can collect like 10 tokens at once and just get them like dripped to you. So it's something that people still don't understand, I think, from other chains, and they probably don't really think about it too much, because I mean, a lot of the time you would never, if you're not trying to do it, or if it's not just actively happening, then you'll never know about it, right? Like on Binance Smart Chain, I'm sure most people will just go for one token at a time, thinking that's just kind of the way it is.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So I got to go, Subcritical. if you don't mind, why don't we do this, man? Why don't we do this? Would you mind just doing a quick little outro? Thank you guys so much for watching, and pausing the recording, and then we can talk, because I'm getting kicked out of my studio right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So thanks everybody. Oh, sorry. I had to do that again. Sorry. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll definitely do this again. We're kind of trying to lock down the logistics of getting the cameras and all that set up. So next time we'll probably make full use of our time that we have scheduled to hang out. Jay, go ahead.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time on Jcrtical, and let us know your favorite part of the show.
Bye, everybody.